Social harm originates out of a series of debates within criminology about the narrowness of the definition of crime, which essentially focuses on individual acts of harm, things like interpersonal violence, theft, so on and so forth. So the idea of social harm originally was to expand that notion of harm to encompass the harms that organizations cause, that nation-states cause. But latterly the idea of social harm really now transcends criminology, so there are a group of writers who think that, and I would include myself there, that actually there's something to social harm that could be very useful in terms of trying to understand the harms that occur within society, to produce an objective and well-rounded analyses of harm.
Sweet potatoes contain fiber, vitamin A and calcium. But the way that scientists think they can make them even more healthful is literally shocking. Researchers found that giving a jolt of electricity to sweet potatoes increased the level of antioxidants known as polyphenols by 60%. The investigators placed sweet potatoes in a solution of sodium chloride. They found that 0.2 amps of direct current gave the potatoes nearly 1.5 times more antioxidants than potatoes that weren't shocked. The research was presented at the national meeting of the American Chemical Society. It seems that the electric zap stressed the potatoes into producing more polyphenols as a protective mechanism. And the treatment did not sacrifice flavor. Previous research has shown that electrically supercharging white potatoes increase antioxidant levels. So perhaps it's only a matter of time before other fruits and vegetables get shock-counted therapy to restart.
Why do we need more entrepreneurs right now? The entrepreneurs who create and run our businesses, who play by the rules, are in fact critical to our success as a nation. We need them especially today. First, we need them to solve the current crisis. Business, not the government, will end this recession. The government must help by creating fair rules, sound monetary policy, and by protecting our fellow citizens in periods where they are jobless. But the government has to stand to the side and let new entrepreneurial firms challenge companies that can no longer compete. We have to make way for the new entrepreneurial firms that will push us to frontiers of innovation. Tiers of innovation.
So how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second.
The person making the haircut appointment for her boss? She's not a person.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trend rapidly developing in AI. Have it do the things we don't want to do. Self-driving cars get a lot of attention in this arena, but Google recently demonstrated AI for more mundane tasks. Their system is called Google Duplex. It's a voice assistant designed to mimic the way humans speak to one another.
Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
Amazon, Apple, and other tech companies also make voice assistants, of course. What's new with Duplex is that it can carry on a conversation seemingly as a human being, that is, somewhat awkwardly. And that's the point, of course. Google doesn't want Duplex to sound like a machine. In the hair salon example, the woman who answers the phone throws Duplex a curveball.
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. Closest we have to that is a 1:15.
There's a point in the exchange where Duplex shows its true colors, though. Listen carefully and you'll hear a distinct difference between the AI's pronunciation of 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
For just an instant, Duplex's mismatched tones remind you of being on hold with your bank. Your wait time is 10 minutes. A second Duplex clip is a bit more impressive because the person answering the phone doesn't seem to be fully paying attention. Duplex tells the woman 3 times that he wants to come by on Wednesday.
How may I help you?
Hi, I'd like to reserve a table for Wednesday the 7th.
For 7 people?
It's for 4 people.
4 people? When? Today?
Next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
For 4 people, you can come.
How long is the wait usually to be seated?
For when, tomorrow or weekday or?
For next Wednesday.
Duplex has a ways to go before it'll be ready to handle open-ended conversations on random topics. But one day you may be freed from all kinds of unpleasant vocal interactions, leaving more time for unpleasant social media interactions.
Finally, we get a sneak peek of the world's largest interactive video installation that opens in London today. If you walk around Trafalgar Square in the next week, video cameras linked up to a computerized surveillance system will be tracking your every move. Your location is transmitted into 2 huge video projectors lurking overhead. As you look down one of over 1,000 animated portraits could have here in your shadow. These videos were created by people from across the UK who were asked to film themselves for 3 minutes doing something that best represents them. The installation can project up to 14 portraits in the space at once. So if it attracts a crowd, you'll have to wait your turn to see a face pop out below.
Intringham only does one thing: we provide housing and aged care services to older homeless men and women. Along the way, we have built unashamedly beautiful buildings, 2 of which have won and been runner-up in the prestigious United Nations World Habitat Award, the first time an Australian building has received that international honour. We rely on older concepts of Australian architecture that are heavily influenced by the bush.
All residents have private veranda which allows them to socialize outdoors and also creates some defensible space between their bedrooms and public areas. We use a lot of natural or soft materials and build beautifully landscaped gardens.
Well, there's probably around about a 10% chance, up to a 10% chance of that occurring. It's really hard to crystal ball these sorts of things because we can't use the historic data we've got. Over 116 years of records on inflows into the system, we are continuing to break every record, and so it's very, very difficult to forecast going forward when you're in the midst of such an extreme event.
For all his fame and celebration, William Shakespeare remains a mysterious figure with regards to personal history. There are just two primary sources for information on the bard, his works, and various legal and church documents that have survived from Elizabethan times. Naturally, there are many gaps in this body of information, which tells us little about Shakespeare the man.
Obviously, this is all relevant to your final assignment. So we're going to talk about it. So until today, we've gone through face-to-face interviews as the main sort of part of interviewing the window. Today we're going to have a look at going to use an email and why they work, why they don't necessarily work, and what are the challenges and some of the things that we need to be understanding, when we are completing such interpreters. So let's start with the foreign one. Obviously, there are a few benefits to them, and they are listed there up on that slide. It's obviously less stressful for those of you who might be a little bit anxious about interviewing.
That brings us to the CEO's second duty, building everyone, or more accurately, building the senior team. All the executives report to the CEO, so it's the CEO's job to hire, fire, and manage the executive team. From coaching CEOs, I actually think this is the most important skill of all. Because when a CEO hires an excellent senior team, that team can keep the company running. When a CEO hires a poor senior team, the CEO is up spending all of their time trying to do with the team, and not nearly enough time trying to do with other elements of their job. The senior team can and often does develop the strategy for the company, but ultimately it's always the CEO who has the final go-no-go decision on strategy.
I think it's really important for young people not to feel restricted in their choices and also to be aware of the choices that are available to them, and obviously the media has an incredibly important role to play in that, in letting people know the great range of science that is out there and is potentially a career. I think we tend to talk about science as this big kind of monolith, but of course, actually it's this beautiful multifaceted thing, there's almost something for everybody there. There are so many different aspects of it that really attract lots of different types of personality. I think somebody that's going to be attracted to working in biology might be a very different person from somebody who's attracted to engineering. I suppose it's about knowing the breadth of opportunities that are out there, and so anything that universities and broadcast media can do to make sure that those opportunities are visible, I think is really important.
Again, I want to repeat that I don't blame libertarians for this state of affairs. My argument is really that they simply have nothing to offer us in this debate. When we talk about trying to get rid of the welfare policies that have enabled some of the breakdowns of the family, that is undoubtedly important, but I think we're beyond that at this point. The damage is so deep. And it's kind of hard for me to envision a future without Social Security, for instance. I quite agree with the analysis that the Social Security, Medicare and that sort of thing, have decreased the primary functions of the family, but I cannot imagine a world in which we get rid of these things, so that we will be, from a pragmatic point of view, we have to think about what we can do to try to bolster up this breakdown that I keep referring to.
Now, because you're having all these cities and all these factories, people are going to move to these cities for work, and you're going to have a lot of different people from different areas in one particular small geographic location. So you're going to be seeing these people interact a lot more than you would in small rural areas. Also, you're going to have housing shortages, crime, lack of jobs, so there's a lot of things that you could observe and test and see. And this is what sociology really takes off as a science.
Lawrence Stephen Lowry RBS Ra was an English artist. Many of his drawings and paintings depict Pendlebury, Lancashire, where he lived and worked for more than 40 years, and also Salford and its surrounding areas. Lowry is famous for painting scenes of life in the industrial districts of northwest England in the mid-20th century. He developed a distinctive style of painting and is best known for his urban landscapes peopled with human figures often referred to as Matchstick Man. He painted mysterious unpopulated landscapes, brooding portraits and the unpublished marionette works, which were only found after his death.
Experimental psychological research is conducted in a lab under controlled conditions and attempts to rely solely on an application of research methods to understand behavior and mental processes. As an example of a psychological experiment, you might want to investigate people's perceptions of different tones. Specifically, you could ask the following question: is it easier for people to discriminate one pair of tones from another depending on their frequency? To answer this, you would want to disprove the hypothesis that all tones are easy to discriminate.